Ford's numbers are, he's getting some pretty serious traction there. The other thing that's conspicuous about Rob, of course, is, as you were just enumerating at your press conference, he says some things that are sort of awkward and problematic, right?
Yeah, to say the least.
What's going on? Why does he appear to be getting the support that he's getting?
Well, I think that he's got traction. Firstly, there was a poll last week, but I think what's clear is that he and I are, relatively speaking, leaders of the pack, and the others trail behind. And I think that's what's going to shape up, especially more after Labor Day. And I think that the field of voters that's available to me is a bigger field of voters than that is available to him. I think that the reason that he's been successful is really one thing with a couple of complementary influences. There's a lot of anger at City Hall. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of people that feel that City Hall has nickeled and dimed them. And because he's been buying his own paper clips for the last number of years and gets credit for that as kind of a waste chaser, that can almost sound like a fancy way of saying chubby chaser, but I didn't mean it that way. He's got some traction. The simplicity of that appeals to people, especially those who are angry.
Yeah.
But I think that we have to keep a couple of things in mind. One is that, as we were talking before, traditionally, at least the conventional wisdom is the race doesn't really begin till Labor Day. All of the polls have shown huge percentages of undecideds. And that poll from last week, we're not even actually sure if somebody didn't just make it up. No one could really validate those numbers, but there's no doubt he's got a base of support. I've got a very stable base of support, but there's a lot of work to be done between now and Election Day to bring it across the line.
Does he have a point that there's some secret stuff going on at City Hall? And
well, he called it corruption, so right. Let's not water down his words. In any organization, I don't know, I haven't been there, but within municipal law, council has the option of going in camera for a limited number of matters. In camera meaning out of, odd expression, right?
This seems like it's a perception thing, maybe, that he's capitalizing on. That there's a perception among some of the constituents that City Hall is in some ways to them a little bit impenetrable, and there's stuff going on that they have no.
Well, I think City Hall is a place that seems to operate for the people that work there and not for the citizens of the city. Yeah. And I think you can find that in the operation of the council. I think you can find that in the attitude of the staff at some points where you go for service. Like, I just think that the city, thinking about 47,000 employees.
It is a bureaucracy, right?
Yeah, but it's badly in need of an attitude adjustment. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's a lot of people, I talked to a small business owner in South Etobicoke that wanted to get an A-frame, a sandwich board as we knew it in the day, for in front of their store. The only way that they could do that was to go to a service center in the old East York Civic Center. Well, in this day and age, firstly, that you got to get a permit and buy a permit for that is challenging enough. But the idea that the place hasn't evolved in a way that you can do that online or in some, there just ought to be a simpler way to be able to do that.
Sure.
And when the person said, can't I do this online? There was that's it. That's the only way, and people basically hung up on them. So yeah, there's a bad need for an attitude adjustment. The way I would put it is, there are two candidates more than any other that seem with good prospects to be the mayor. I'm one of them, and Rob Ford is one of them. We're both agents of change, but the question, I think, will become who can rock the boat without tipping the boat over. And, in the places that I've been, whether it was the Ministry of Health or the Ministry of Energy and Infrastructure, I'm not a product of the status quo. And I think part of what my campaign has to focus more effectively on in the 68 days that remain between now and Election Day is the plans that I have to shake up the city from the standpoint of its priorities, what it delivers, and especially from the standpoint of the way the city operates towards its constituents.
So now we're the gay and lesbian paper for the
Really?
for the city.
Okay.
Yes, you may have heard of us at the time.
I may have, yeah, I've heard of you before.
What in your view are some of the issues that are of specific interest to gay and lesbian people going into this election?
I think that there's always an interest in taking a community and making it seem as though that community has a set of voting criteria that's all that different than the rest of the population. And there will be some particular pieces to it, but at the heart of it, the agenda that I'm going to focus on and beat the drum for is a safer city where you can walk the streets with a greater sense of safety, a city that allows you to get from point A to point B more effectively, a city that is more prosperous and creates more jobs, and this attitude adjustment that is necessary at City Hall. I think those things add up to a restoration of a sense of pride in our city. I think people have pride in their neighborhoods, and there are many things that they could say are attributes of the city that they really, really like. But overall, I think pride is somewhat waning. But I think that
In the city, you mean? Pride in the city.
yeah, but I think that even in the last 24 hours, issues for our community that will become a bigger part of the voting consciousness of gay and lesbian people and LGBT. I'm old school, man. I just like to say queer, but I don't know where to stop. But just that, even that ever expanding list of people that we try to have included in the broader lesbian and gay community is an example of the idea that inclusion is progresses. But what we see from the comments of Councillor Ford is that on an ongoing basis, he rules people out of his sense of who's important in the city of Toronto. And I think that what's going to be clearer for gay and lesbian people as they approach the election is that there is the prospect of the election of a mayor who's been openly hostile to the gay community. And I know some people took a pass on and accepted those comments that he made about funding for AIDS and HIV prevention, that those weren't inflammatory and such. But I can't read those comments without feeling a sense of disgust and a sense that as a gay person, in a certain sense to him, I'm disposable, and my needs aren't important. I think
is there from an electioneering perspective, is there a tactical advantage, perceived or real, that distancing yourself a little bit from the gay community might be a good idea? That you don't necessarily want to be seen as the gay guy, the gay mayor, the gay candidate.
Well, you know what, I'll say two things on this. And when I decided in 1999 to run for office, people kind of asked me that question a lot, as if to suggest that I was going to, are you going to go back in the closet? Considering that I'd owned and operated a photo store across the street here on the top of the steps back when most of you probably hadn't even discovered discovered the neighborhood. So there's no instinct for distancing on my part. I think that my brand is authenticity. I am who I am. I've enjoyed. To some people,
But as a seasoned politician, right? You've been at this for some time now. As part of the calculus.
No.
You don't.
No. It's firstly. It runs counter to who I am. I'm in the midst of adopting a child in the middle of the election campaign. At the point in time that adoption process is completed, I look forward to the opportunity to celebrate the creation of a family, which is part. And some. Are there people who are advisors in the political realm that would say, downplay that stuff? Sure, of course there are. I've always felt that in politics, and time will tell, that while I can identify people who are less inclined to support me because I'm queer, I've always felt that there were an equal number who were more inclined to support me because of that. And I'm hoping that that balance holds holds true. What's obvious, especially with these comments that Ford has made with respect to immigration, is that I can identify with immigrant communities. You know, to you, I'm wearing a suit, and I'm a white male, and I've enjoyed the privilege of. I guess I've probably been the most senior openly gay politician in the history of Canada by way of responsibilities. But I have the minority. I have the minority experience, and I think that this is something that I speak openly. I'm from a community that is the community of the Charter, and in the same way that other communities might depend upon the Charter of Rights and Freedoms for the protection of their religious privilege, I embrace the Charter. So I think actually it's a point of, I try to use it as a point of connection to other minority communities.
So the initial question was about policy priorities that were coming from the gay community. So it's good to hear that there's no effort to downplay your queerness during the campaign. But the question that was asked, you didn't answer it. You didn't give any policy priorities.
Well, with all due respect, yes, I did. But what I said was that we shouldn't seek to focus on the notion that the gay community has a list of issues and priorities that are so substantially distinct from everybody else. But I think that on a localized basis, in this neighborhood as an example, we've got policy priorities which are associated with the necessity of improving the streetscape of Church and Wellesley, because this neighborhood looks ratty and it's dirty. I think that as a policy priority, we have to recognize that support for things like the $1.5 million that the City of Toronto provides for tops up for HIV and AIDS prevention, which I did speak to, will be at risk if Councillor Ford becomes the mayor. That Pride funding, and maybe you guys don't support, I'm not sure, you might not all support government support for Pride. I'm not sure of where your position's at on this, but clearly those dollars from the City of Toronto are going to be dollars that are at risk if Councillor Ford is elected. I think these are some of the examples. I think that I did speak to the immigration issue because I think at the heart of it, it really is about making sure that the gay and lesbian community continues to feel like it's included as an important part of the fabric that makes Toronto a city of diversity that heretofore we've been inclined to celebrate. And I'm sure that there are many additional issues around the necessity of making sure that people who are particularly marginalized are being given the opportunity for access to supportive housing and to the kind of programs that the city's involved in, that people in the provision of social services are responsive to the needs of communities that can be marginalized, that our police service, which is an area where much progress is yet required to. So I get that there's a whole I get that there's a very, very long list of those things. And as a gay person, I have a very, very easy time identifying with those things. But my premise here, though, and I will go back to it, is that the people that the gay people, broader LGBT, queer, two-spirited, the broader community voting in the election, I think that most of those people will be voting on a basket of issues very, very similar to the broader citizenry. I think that is about safety, about the capacity to get our city moving again, about making our city more prosperous, because the rate of unemployment, which certainly includes our community, and this overall sense of malaise at City Hall, that it's working for the employees and not for the citizens. I still think that bigger, broad basket of issues is likely to be very prevalent in the minds of the LGBT community as they go to vote.